Torrera, and I'm here to talk about youth violence in America. Um, Youth violence, it's like a plague. It infects our youth and it decimates whole communities. It's a serious problem here in America because so many of our youth are involved in violence and they don't have anybody guiding them, and the community doesn't get involved. They just try to, oh, those are bad kids, but that might not always be the case. Violence occurs in communities all over America, and it affects the individuals in the community, the prosperity of the community, and also the future of the victims and the aggressors. Violence affects communities that are involved. It can deteriorate the economic health. It can also affect the individual well-being of the members of the community. Like, they might get physically harmed, or they can have psychological harm. Communities that are affected by violence or more violence tend to be of lower income levels or lower economic levels. Not saying that those are the only communities affected, but they're the most prevalent to violence. Rural communities or urban communities, none are exempt from violence, because in urban communities, most of the violence that occurs is related to gangs, related to drugs, related to crimes, theft. But in rural communities, there can be violence, and what's more surprising about that is that they're usually tighter knit communities that everyone knows each other. So whenever violence occurs, it's surprising because, oh, I know those guys, or we know that person. How does violence affect the future of the youths involved? Youth that are exposed to violence tend to have psychological damage. Like, there are youths that can suffer from PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, like soldiers get when they come back from Iraq or anywhere they're stationed. Poor academics is also a sign that people might be suffering from violence, or they are causing violence themselves. Substance abuse and also just overall delinquency can happen when violence occurs. Youth affected by violence are also most likely to behave violently towards other individuals if they have been affected by violence. They are also less likely to pursue higher education. So if you are affected by violence or have been affected by violence, it is less likely that you'll want to go to college. You'll be more scared to branch out of your comfort zone, out of your community. And also, according to the CDC, from ages 10 to 24, violence is the #1 cause of death among that age group here in America. How does youth violence affect both the aggressors and the victims? It is something that people rarely talk about. People usually talk about only how violence affects the victims, but they never talk about the aggressors. The victims, while they suffer physical damage and also psychological damage, wounds will heal, over time. Psychological damage may take a little bit longer, but the aggressors affected by violence, they are affected by the justice system. Many of them become felons, in which after you have a felony on your record, it's extremely difficult to get a job. You can't join the military. You can't, a lot of schools don't like having felons. Trauma can also happen. It can be traumatic for them as well. And psychological damage can occur, which means if they have already committed violence, then they can commit violence more and more, and eventually it can even lead them to become a sociopath. According to the World Health Organization, in the United States, 423 out of 100,000 violent arrests are males, and 99.7 out of 100,000 arrests are females, which is staggeringly high for for such a developed nation, you know, if we're such a developed nation, why is this such a big problem? You know, we have it everywhere in schools, it happens at home, it happens outside on the streets, and a lot of times it's because people just don't pay enough attention to what's going on. They don't listen to, they don't look for the signs, they don't look for the neglect that children are suffering, and a lot of times that puts children over the edge. It makes them want to get attention. It makes them feel better to hurt other people because then they feel what they're feeling, and maybe that's where we should look for a solution. We should start with children at a young age. You know, maybe it doesn't have to be that we have to dedicate 100% of our time, but some time and just teaching them right from wrong and giving them attention might be able to help a lot. Thanks a lot.
All right, we'll do fine. Okay, this is what I need from everybody.